Hi, my name is Felice and I'm the Happy Star Wars Guy. Today we're going to talk about Star Wars Resistance Season 2. I finished the entire season actually a couple of weeks ago, several weeks ago, because it ended back in, well, it ended actually back in January, and I've been waiting for the Clone Wars, which I hope you were able to check out that episode. I'll put a link at the end of this video so you can check that out as I continue to review the Star Wars universe, current and old. Um, Star Wars Resistance was a wonderful, wonderful animated series that introduced new characters, a new storyline, a new group of people who are part of the Resistance, who are getting intel for Poe and Princess Leia, General Organa, during The Force Awakens, and the Star Wars Resistance story ended at the same time as The Force Awakens ended, and you see the planets being destroyed, and that's where Star Wars Resistance ended. And you have this group of characters who are on the Colossus. The Colossus is a station, and at the end of Star Wars Resistance 1, Season 1, you find out the Colossus is actually a giant space station. And they're able to reboot it and get it off the planet and away from the First Order. So season two is all about the challenge of being on this giant space station with limited resources. So throughout the entire season 2, they're jumping from planet to planet looking for a new home and a new place to be. They run into some interesting conflicts. They explore new planets that we have heard of and we haven't heard of. And toward the end, we end up being back at Dantooine, which is a planet that we all know all too well if you are anyone who's paid attention to Star Wars A New Hope. Dantooine is the planet that Leia suggests is where the Rebel base is. And they end up going to Alderaan and blowing that up, and we all know how that ends. So it's really cool to see all of these different planets that we've heard of and all of these planets that we're new to. That's what I've enjoyed about the whole new way that Disney has approached Star Wars. The creators of Star Wars in these new stories through Disney have introduced us to some new planets that we've never heard of. And at first, I was a little upset because I was hoping to see some of the planets that we have heard of over and over again and would like to see what they look like. And I'm sure eventually we're going to get there. In fact, Star Wars Resistance gives me hope as they introduce Dantooine on the screen. So, the Star Wars Resistance Season 2 truly is exciting. The main conflict in this whole storyline for this cartoon is one of the characters left the Colossus and joined the First Order. She joined the First Order and became a stellar TIE fighter pilot and ends up leading her own squadron, and she ends up double-crossing the First Order in a strategic effort. And in that effort is really how the story closes, because this starfighter, the Star Destroyer that's been chasing this particular base and hunting them down, ends up being annihilated and closing. So the storyline ends right around the same time as Star Wars Resistance, or Star Wars Rise of Skywalker ends. And that's kind of how they had decided to create the storyline. Because if you remember, again, Star Wars Resistance ended at the same time virtually as Force Awakens. And Force Awakens ends at the beginning of The Last Jedi. So the short time during The Last Jedi is when Star Wars Resistance storyline is unfolding, and it leads up to The Rise of Skywalker. So it's been a fun storyline. It's been exciting seeing new aliens, new characters being brought in. It was really cool to see character development because, in, particularly the one of the space pirates that ends up joining the crew on the Colossus ends up becoming really good friends with Kaz, and she ends up showing her allegiance to the Colossus versus the pirates. She has a good heart, and I hope we see some of these characters in later stories. I really had grown to appreciate them, and I'm very thankful for taking the leap and watching this series. So I'll put the links in the comments and in the description of this, and I hope you check it out and enjoy it as much as I did. And thank you for tuning in, and continue to follow. And if you haven't, if this is your first time watching, go like and subscribe, and go check out my other episode on Star Wars Resistance Season 1. Thank you. May the Force be with you.